Big races all over the place this weekend. And anytime you're getting ready to play the races, you have to head on over to drf.com. Right now, we're in the middle of a spring into savings sale, and that's going to roll all the way through Sunday, March the 24th. That's a very important day also. That's my birthday. But that's the end of this sale. And you can use the coupon code SPRING24, 15% off the entire DRF shop, past performances, handicapping products, all the stuff you need to get ready for a huge time in our sport right now. Barry Spears, as my good friend Barry joins me again to talk about Fairgrounds. Barry, this is that rapid fire start that we were just talking about this weekend. Fairgrounds, bunch of stakes races, I think 8 on the card. You and I are going to talk about the late pick 5 at Fairgrounds, which is going to be a huge pool. I think they're estimating it around $1 million in this all stakes pick 5. Turfway has a really good card with Jeff Ruby Stakes Day. Next weekend, Dubai World Cup. We've got Arkansas Derby, Florida Derby Day, and the following weekend, you've got Wood Memorial, Santa Anita Derby, and Bluegrass Day. So, get ready, my friend. It is upon us.
It's coming up real fast, the Derby and all these prep races, and it's going to get exciting, and there's money to be made. So I'm in.
Let's do this. We will bounce over to Fairgrounds. Good card at Fairgrounds. There's Kentucky Derby points on the line. There's Kentucky Oaks points on the line. And as always, you can expect some really good fields in the undercard stakes races. And we will dive in starting in race number 8. And they're estimating it about $1 million pool in this all stakes pick 5 that kicks off with a mile and a 16th race on the turf course. Barry, this is the Tom Benson Memorial for fillies and mares 4-year-olds and up. So we've seen some of these fillies that we've talked about in the prep races the last couple rounds. We saw Spirit and Glory recently get the victory in her most recent start, which was the Al Stall Memorial. She beat some of these same rivals that day. We've taken a few shots with horses like Join the Dance, who's been in some of these races repeatedly. Tufany, what got very good, but then ran into a little bit of trouble last time out. Who are some of the horses that are on your radar or horses you would want to use to start this pick 5?
Yeah, this is a really interesting race because I don't think there's really too much speed in here for it to get crazy up front where you get the race falls apart. I think the pace would be fair, but not out,
Cooking, like
not out of this
contended.
world. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which kind of leads me towards the outside runners in this race. There's 3 of them. The 10 Delahaye looks pretty good. It's tough to kind of gauge what this horse is going to do, but the races that this horse has had, he's kind of done it all.
And that's what's nice about her, right? In that she not only can she show the speed like she did last time out, but if they are going quick and she's drawn to the outside, she's certainly fine sitting off. And that versatility made her a horse that I have to use in pick 4s and pick 5s because I think she can just adapt to different scenarios here.
Absolutely. And again, I'll say this again. I know I've been saying for a few weeks now is that Chad Brown's been cold everywhere but Tampa, but he's starting to win more races and you can see him heating up. And this is a pretty good spot for a horse like this who's lightly raced. There's some known commodities in here, horses that have established kind of running styles and so on, that this one is kind of a wild card. And at 6-1, I'm not really too apt to pick a horse like Spirit and Glory, who I know is going to be a favorite in this race, off the bench, where that horse, in particular, Spirit and Glory, kind of topped out, I think.
It was a good effort. And what was Spirit and Glory too did get stayed inside and the rail opened wide up.
Yeah, kind of got a great
She was able to push through and she got a great trip. It was a good ride that day from Pratt. And you're going to get that. And she certainly makes sense and is a contender. But I agree with you she's not nearly as fun at her price with her running style, where it feels like the last spot was a really good spot for her. Even coming off the bench, it was.
Exactly, yeah. And I think she may have, I'm not sure how much better she can run than she did last time.
Yeah, that was a career best for her.
Not saying that she needs to run that way in order to win this race, but I think it just makes it tougher for her to pair up those kind of efforts. She hasn't really done it in the past, so I'm kind of looking elsewhere. Delahaye seems like a logical horse on the rise that can actually win a race like this.
Yep.
The horse I'm really interested in is the 11 Hidden Connection. You know this horse has some ability. You know this horse can compete at higher levels than what she's running into on Saturday, but the going to turf is the equalizer. I don't think this horse won't you know will be I think this horse will be okay on
Fine, fine on it. It shouldn't be a
it's
hindrance for her.
not a stretch for this horse to go onto the turf and run well. And I think at 10-1 and obviously all the dirt form, this horse might get overlooked a little bit. Getting Raylu, which is a plus because he's very familiar with this horse, knows her style. She's going to be forwardly placed, probably won't be on the lead, but very close to it. And I think this horse merits a long look at a decent price. And then the last horse who I think has a really good shot also is the 12 Ouvre. Um, Same sort of deal. This horse gets on the turf a few times, early at 5.5, does okay, runs pretty good figures in stakes races. One in particular, a couple of them actually at the fairgrounds, and those were two victories. Stretched out later back in September and did okay in a higher level allowance race. Now goes back to stretching out, and I think getting Irad is going to make all the difference because he's very good at pace and also timing when trying to get his horses to finish. Um, I just wouldn't take too short of a price on a horse like this because he's 5-1 morning line, which probably ends up being second choice. And
7-2. And yeah, you don't want to take, but she obviously makes sense, right? Too. And the
yeah,
horse she beat at Keeneland, Sweet Danny Girl, that's a nice filly. Now she's a mare. She's won her first two starts for Clement, but she's always been good and always shown good speed and ability. So I have no knocks with her. The What is a little bit hard from a handicapping standpoint in this particular race is a couple of the horses that fit really well in here, or I am expecting them to run well off of their last race. I don't know if they're going to get the type of race shape they need. I had mentioned one of them earlier, which was Tufani,
mhm,
who was favored in a race kind of like this on January 20th, a couple prep races back, like 2 rounds back for a lot of these same fillies and mares. And she was about 5 lengths off. And one of the rivals to her outside started to move early, and it kind of put her in between. And she got forced into a really bad spot. She was 3 wide. She was in between horses. She got stopped. She tried to gather herself and kind of shift around inside, but that trouble really cost her. It was bad. What the reason why I've come back to her a little bit more is she hasn't shown it in her last couple races, but she did used to have some speed, some tactical speed at least, to where she didn't have to be that far out of it. You look at when she broke her maiden, she was just off the pace, and it wasn't like a dawdling pace where they went 50 and she just crawled. And then she came back again and ran pretty well in a stakes race at Colonial when she was on the lead, and she ended up finishing second that day. We saw the third place finisher come back and win. So I'd be curious if they look at her last couple races and go, or just that last race coming out of having some trouble and
and
want to
try to
get
put
her,
her into a race earlier.
just
Yeah,
want to get her a little more forwardly placed. And because if she is above 5-1, that's really nice value for her as far as her fit at the class level here. It's just she needs the right type of trip. And I'm fine playing her at 5-1 or above with that question mark because the value's at least there, if she's six,
yes.
8-1.
Yes, absolutely. I'm totally agree because, if it were to come down to, let's say, you're playing the pick five and you have Tufani and Ouvre, it's like, who do you pick?
Yep.
It just all depends on your preference and who you think is going to probably get a better trip. If you believe that, Tufani's probably going to be better value anyway off the top, you probably would want to include that horse. Not even for the fact that she might do something different, just because she's actually pretty good on this turf course,
Yeah.
and will probably get an okay trip from the inside, um, albeit from way back, based on her last couple. But if they just decide to change tactics and get her in the race earlier, that might even be better.
Fun race. You're like
Yeah, it's a
these
tough one.
races are really challenging. There's nothing wrong with the horse. Like, watch this birdie. It just same type of horse as Tufani, right?
Mhm.
Just like needs a little bit of a trip. She has some races where she's been able to put herself a little closer, but it's kind of hard to trust that she's going to be close enough. But she certainly wouldn't shock if they started to go quick and you needed, and horses were flying from the back. I feel like we gave Join the Dance a couple shots,
Too many.
right? Like, and she got good trips in some of those. She got the trips we were hoping for. In particular, the January 20th one where she sat second, she moved right to the lead again last time out. She was sitting real close, and because you want her to get the jump on everyone else, and she's done that in her last couple races, and it really hasn't mattered.
Right, it didn't work out. I mean, you see her win at Gulfstream, in the Monroe, uh, back last May, and she was on the lead the whole time, and it's starting to look like that's her running style. Like that's the way she's going to win. But we'll see.
Let's move along from race number 8 into the all graded stakes late pick 4 sequence, which starts in race number 9. And this one is the New Orleans Classic. It is a grade 2 event. And you also, I think some of the news in here, it looks like Touch Upon a Star is going to run. And I think they said Lure Him In is not going to run.
Okay.
He's going to be pointed to a Gulfstream. I think he's entered here and a Gulfstream this weekend. And if I'm not mistaken, Marcus Hirsch had tweeted earlier that he's going to be pointing to the Go Zapper coming at the Gulfstream. So just some news and notes on this one as we take a look at this field. Barry, it's fun to start with the Louisiana bred. And I love when you get a chance to see horses like this face open company. Touch Upon a Star is an 11-time winner in 14 races, and he has faced open company before. He won the Delta Mile, and in that race, he beat, a couple horses that we know their names. 5-Star General was actually 4th in the Louisiana after winning the Tenacious, which was a local stakes here. And the Louisiana was behind Saudi Crown, Red Route 1, and Happy American, some of these similar horses. So that same prep, just 2 rounds, this same kind of a prep for the older horses, just 2 prep rounds back. So he is a cool horse. And I love when we get to see these horses that have been good. They beat up on the state breds, and now they face they get the acid test. What makes it a little difficult is he's speedy. He can sit a little bit, but I don't know how far he wants to come from off the pace.
Yeah, I'm resigned to thinking this horse wants to lead every time.
Yeah.
And what this race really all comes down to for me is if you think horses like Gasoline and
Best
Best
actor.
Actor can get in that horse's way.
Yep.
If you think that they can kind of bother that horse by being close to him, close to him early, then I think it opens it up for some opportunities here. And the first horse that really kind of caught my eye was Super Corinto. This horse ran really good at Gulfstream on the dirt twice going long, and you don't see too many of those races going at Gulfstream anyway. They thought enough of this horse to bring him to Maidan to run in the Dubai World Cup. Didn't run a step, but was outclassed. This makes a lot more sense, and you're getting Irad, who is perfect fit for a horse like this, training well coming into this event. Definitely a wild card, 12-1. You probably won't get that. Probably be about half that, maybe even 5-1 ish. But I think this horse, you got to really take a double take, because I think the running style is going to be there. Because if the pace heats up like I think it's going to, you can even add Black Belt into that
Yeah,
pace
he
mix.
wants to be close because he's sort of, his win last time was one of those fall into it wins where he's just kind of a part of the quick early like he's kind of a part of like the battle early, and he fell into it and he opened up, but he doesn't want to come from much more out of it either.
No, no, and I think that horse is going to, kind of press the pace and keep it honest enough for horses from behind, like Super Corinto, who I think, in my head, I want to see this horse get to the lead at the very top of the stretch,
Yeah,
and he'd be tough to beat. Another one who, now that Lure Him In is out, I think that moves up Velociter
absolutely. This is
for the
my guy.
same reasons.
Yep. Um,
Um, you got that race, his dirt races have been good. One on a sloppy track, and then one on a fast track, and he's won both times. It makes you wonder why they keep running this horse on the synthetic. But he's going to be on the dirt on Saturday. Probably will get close to this 10-1. I think this horse might get dismissed based on, winning that $50,000 claimer. It wasn't the same class as what he's facing on Saturday, but I still think this horse has a very, very good shot.
I like him a lot in this spot. What's nice, if you go through his whole career too, he has like two little spots where he didn't run well in a couple races.
Yeah, just two
Other than
races.
that,
Yeah.
but he's been really good. His first 4 races in his career were good. He won right off the bat. They put him in stakes company. Then he was off for a few months. He showed back up, back-to-back wins. They stretch him out. He wins the Coronation at a big price. Then he's off for a while. He shows up last year as a 3-year-old. So the goal for him was getting into the King's Plate. So they had a couple prep races for him. Didn't really run all that well, though, in his first few starts at 3. Then in the plate trial and the King's Plate, he ran a lot better. He was behind Paramount Prince, who won both of those. We actually just saw him at Gulfstream Park not long ago when he went wire to wire in his first start of the year. He was the King's Plate winner last year, so their version of the Kentucky Derby. And Velociter then went to the Prince of Wales, which is another leg of the Canadian Triple Crown. And that was the one at Fort Erie that's on the dirt. It was on the slop. The Canadian Triple Crown is on 3 different surfaces. They go synthetic, dirt, and turf. When the one finally came on the dirt, and you were saying, he'd been on the dirt only a few times. That's sort of why, because it's not like he had run poorly on the synthetic early on, and he was going for all the big races at Woodbine and competing in all of them. And then when it went to the dirt, it was like, oh, wow. So they go back and they finish up and run in another big race at Woodbine to end the year. He doesn't fire there. He's off for a little bit, and he comes down to Gulfstream, or he goes down to Fairgrounds. They take a shot on the turf with him in a stakes race that kind of fits, and then they move to the dirt, and you really get the sense then after that second start that this horse might enjoy the main track. These are good owners that win a ton of races up at Woodbine. He fits to me, and distance is no problem for him. He's a grinder too. He can just keep grinding, and I don't think he has to be too far out of it, but if he's sitting like 3 lengths out, I think that's perfect because he can just keep grinding and wear those horses down in front of him.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's spot on, because you figure this race, the way it's going to shape up is there's going to be like we always talk about, where there's 2 different flights of horses up front. This one's going to be probably in the second, maybe even to the third flight,
Mm-hmm.
and that might be absolutely perfect. I mean, this horse could have improved enough to be, the kind of horse that can run 90 buyers consistently, and in a race like this, that's what it's going to take to win.
You keep him in the clear too, and looking with the 10 out of this race, because that was the tweet I just saw from Hirsch. Lure him in per trainer Joseph. Scratches from both races this weekend for the Go Sapper at Gulfstream. Touch upon a star. Strong lean towards the New Orleans Classic per Delhomme. So those are the 2 in here that you get the news on. But if the 9's going to be more forwardly placed than Velociter, so the 9 will go past him, and Velociter can just kind of keep to the outside in the clear too.
Yeah, or follow that horse,
And
and
just sort
kind
of
of
let
get
him
a
go,
nice trip. Yeah.
and then sit behind, and you can sit in the 2 or 3 path with a couple horses inside of you, and you're, like you said, that second flight or next flight. I think he gets a really nice trip in here. And you know what? On a pick 4 or pick 5, this might actually be a type of race for Red Route Route 1. With the long stretch at 1.125, we see he's won 2 of his 3 races going 1.125. The 1.116 is too long. And like, I think when you get to a mile and a half and even a mile and a quarter, he doesn't have enough speed. They don't go fast enough when they go that far for him to get the type of trip he needs. He has Joel. He has a long stretch here. I wouldn't go bet him to win. I don't mind throwing him in if this is a pick 4 and a pick 5 race, because we're looking for horses that could be coming from off the pace. I rarely use him. This would be one of the times I would be okay with it.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the fence on using that horse because, if you look at his wins, um, they were really going quick up front, or even his near misses. I mean, if you look at the last one in particular, where he finished second behind Saudi Crown, Saudi Crown is an elite horse. I mean, he's world class speed, and he showed it that day. And this horse kind of picked up the pieces behind him. Um, I'm on the verge of just dismissing Red Route Run until this horse starts winning again. But with horses like this, and we've talked about this plenty of times, where they need the optimal circumstances in order to win.
So
But
you get sort of cold on them for a while,
yes,
and
and that
sometimes they kind of lure you off of them, and then they get back, because it is hard. Not every race that ends up going really fast early we can predict. Right?
oh
A lot
no,
of
yeah,
times we're
absolutely.
what looks like it should be really fast is not. And then the flip side. So that's what's really hard about this type of a horse, because he is so at the mercy of what's in front of him.
But
He
worth noting that when he runs with Lasix, he runs better every single time.
Mhm.
I mean, you look in the form, and every time he's had Lasix, he's run much to, basically what his true self, or what I like to say his
His
true self is. But my problem with him is he's always bet. He does take action, and
Yeah,
horses
you know
like
what?
this,
He has
I'd
been
like to
he has
get.
been way over bet in his last few starts. That would be the thing. Like, if he's
That's what turns me off more than
6,
actually the
yeah,
horse himself.
me too. Yeah, and looking back, like 6 and above is fine for him. I wouldn't want to take lower than 6 in here. And the really honest horse has been Money Supply. It's not like he needs an off track, but he does seem like he gets
Class wise,
upgraded.
he's a little
Yeah,
he's a
he gets
little lacking.
upgraded on it, and a lot of the other horses get downgraded on it.
Hmm.
And that ends up being the difference on an off track, because a lot of the time, 60% of horses don't even handle that track or that
Right.
surface. So the ones that do, boom, like the margins end up widening between him and some of the field. So it's
But
not that
I
he
would
can't
definitely
win.
pay attention to the board here,
Me
because
too.
it could get interesting where Money Supply could float up,
Yeah.
and then you're like, oh wow, he actually is the play in a race like this,
Mm-hmm.
because it can go a lot of different ways. So definitely got to be wary of what goes on with the betting.
Yeah, this is another really challenging race, a fun one in your multi exotics here, especially if we can get the honest pace that would probably depend on horse like Best Actor, making sure that he's keeping Touch Upon a Star honest. And you know what? Pratt does a really good job in that too. Pratt usually
Absolutely.
doesn't he's usually not in a race that's a lone speed that beats him because the lone speed jogs. Like, if Touch Upon a Star is better, I think he'll put Best Actor away and maybe the others and then kick on. But
Right.
I don't think Pratt'll sit back and they'll be going sub 24 stuff. That just usually doesn't happen with him. Um,
Yeah.
fun race, man. Fun
Should be a
race.
good one. Yeah.
It is. Let's get to the Moons Memorial, mile and an eighth on the turf course here. So we have 4-year-olds and up, and these are horses that are just a cut below grade ones. You'll see some horses that are dropping out of grade one races, and they're not quite at that top level, but some very solid horses in here. I mean, Adamo has run in 9 straight grade one races, and this is getting a little class relief for him. You have a horse like Strong Quality, who we know where he's going to be right on the front end. He wants to go, but mile and an eighth is pushing it for him. We saw him get a little short at a mile and an eighth last time out. A couple starts back on an off track, he got short at a mile and an eighth also. So this is a little beyond his scope. Web Slinger is really honest. He had a brutal trip. We can pull that up in a minute and show you what happened there in the Pegasus last time out. And I'm very busy. ran a huge race there that day too. Problem is he's way out wide in post 13 here. That could hurt. And, you go up and down the field. It does look like it's strong quality and then a couple other possible pressers. I don't know if they're going to be flying early on up here. So that may impact how you're handicapping this race and some of the deeper closers that you may be looking at. Talk to us about how you see this one, Barry.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't really believe that this pace is going to be all that quick. And I think strong quality might be a standout, and I
In
think
that
they're going to.
sense, right?
Yeah, and I think they're going to bet it that way too. I know he's 6-1 on the morning line, but I really think this horse is either going to be favored or second favorite. Um, you know, I want to like a horse like Web Slinger coming off that trouble in the Pegasus, but that's what happens when you get a closer like that in a race like this. Same thing
Yep.
with Adamo, who hasn't won in 2 years. So it's tough to take horses like that, especially more so Web Slinger, because that horse is probably going to get a lot of action at the
Yeah,
window.
off of that, and it makes what happened. He and I'm very busy. We're pretty much going for the same spot, and it was just like you were
Right.
pointing out. Web Slinger's the 5. I'm very busy's the 4, and I'm very busy is just a little bit in front of him, and he beats him to a spot, and it ends up really impacting Web Slinger. So watch the 4 here. And the 5, Web Slinger's coming up right behind him. And here's the 4, saving the ground, getting the jump, and Web Slinger starting to move. And they both go for the same spot right here.
Yep.
Boom. And Web Slinger gets kind of sawed off, takes up all his momentum. Now he comes back to the outside, and he comes back running. This is what he does. I mean, he's a good horse, an honest horse, but he may not get the setup in here. And that's what's difficult. Because man, that was tough. I had Web Slinger that day too.
See, I was all in on Warm Heart.
Yeah,
I didn't think that was gonna lose.
I think those were the two. I didn't go very deep in there, but I definitely had win money on Web Slinger, where I was, oh gosh, when he started moving there, and that was just a fantastic ride by Moore there. Now, if we're looking at the race this way, I think you have to throw, obviously, strong quality into your exotics, even though he hasn't been as successful at 1 1/8, because it does seem like this is one of those scenarios where it could be just him out there on the front end. Not like Giroux's bad out on the front, but Johnny V jumping aboard is certainly a fine replacement, a fine alternative there.
But he's not a single.
No way.
Isn't a standout in this.
No, not because he does. We don't even know if he can get the distance. But
right,
you got to throw him in, because top of the lane, he might have 2 on the field.
Right, exactly. And based on the pace scenario that I think is going to happen, where it's not going to be too quick, the only 2 horses that I could pinpoint that might get the jump on everybody else and be in a great spot come like the top of the stretch is Beatbox and Gigante, the 7. Both of these horses kind of have similar running styles, will probably be kind of vying for those places. And I think Beatbox was just unlucky in the couple of races, the 3 races before the last win.
Yeah, he's done nothing wrong in his last 5 starts.
And I think stretching out is probably where it's at for a horse like Beatbox.
Completely agree.
The longer they go, the better. And same thing with Gigante. I think a mile in, maybe a mile and 16th might be a little bit too short, and they want to go farther. I know Steve Asmussen isn't the greatest on the turf, but this horse in particular has some versatility to him. And I think that's going to serve this horse well in this race.
Gigante, who we've seen show speed before. And so if they want to get a little bit aggressive, they have certainly some options here and a little versatility. The one, I think both the horses you mentioned, Beatbox to me makes a whole lot of sense as a horse who's going to really get a good trip in here. I think he's a real strong alternative. There was only one other that I wanted to mention based on trips. It was the 9.
Okay.
Johnny's Fireball, who was actually not far behind Beatbox in strong quality in that race last time out. Now, he's another one who we've seen him win on the lead in slow paces. He's been able to sit a little bit closer in a lot of these races. 2 starts back, he was just too far out of it early on, but they got more aggressive with him last time out. And Santana is back, who is a very aggressive rider. And in that race, what I really liked was it was his first start at a mile and an eighth. And so maybe just a little bit late getting used to that extra distance. I like him getting one more shot at that trip with the opportunity to fall into it. Cassie's been really unlucky at the meet with a lot of horses running well and underneath. So for a guy who had a really good year last year, that's going to flip back pretty soon. And some of those seconds and thirds are going to become winners. He might be an interesting horse who, go through his last
Been
5
keeping
races
good
now.
company. Been
Yeah.
keeping good company.
Since
For
he's
sure.
been claimed, he's stepped up. He's not been that far behind Strong Quality multiple times and Beatbox. So if we're looking at them as the major players in here, he's going to be double their price and be able to sit a good trip too. He's a horse that caught my eye as just a horse who could be in the mix with
Yeah,
some nice value.
the only thing that kind of cooled me off on Johnny's Fireball is the trainers
Been
just
cool.
struggling.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's been
he's
cool. Yeah,
struggling lately.
yeah.
But a race like this in a spot like this could turn all that around. And like you said, the horse is probably going to be double the price of the other two. I wouldn't not include that horse. It'd be tough to leave him off the ticket. Another one is Point Proven, who did win um, on the slop last time. Getting back to the turf and going longer might be the move.
Yeah.
And this horse has certainly showed a lot of improvement since coming back or actually just going to the turf.
Mm-hmm. And kept, again, not far behind some of these horses we were talking about. And those still a lightly raced horse with some upside, hasn't had a whole lot of turf races either, just, 6 overall. So again, the first 3 races in this pick 5 sequence, very, very challenging races 8, 9, and 10 to kick things off.
I'll be
You can
upset if this kind of chalks out early.
Yeah, I know, right? Because it looks like it. And then in race number 11, it wouldn't be shocking to me if it got a little bit more formful. I think that you can make some cases for horses improving off their last effort because it is tough when you have a horse like Vivi's Dream who was in the slop and who has noticeably not been as good in a couple races on the slop. So with a horse like Vivi's Dream, do you say maybe she was just really good at 2 and hasn't been able to take the step forward? Or can we just eliminate those 2 races that she run on and off track and say, maybe she's a little sneaky. Maybe she can take a step forward here, second start off the bench. I wouldn't be shocked if she was a little more aggressively handled from the rail. Like they've in a couple of her races where she ran well, she wasn't that far out of it. So I think with the inside draw, they're going to try to get her into the race. The favorites in here to me seem a little more logical, Barry, than some of the races that we were talking before. Just about, I think they're going to run well. Alpine Princess is out. She's 2-1 on the morning line at Turfway in the stakes race over there. So she will. They picked a good spot for her where she'll be probably a little tougher in that race. But Tarifa ran a huge race last time out, and the horse who was right behind her, Intricate, we can understand why she might have been a little bit short and why she can take a good step forward here.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much you kind of covered all the horses that have a shot here. I think with Vivi's Dream, there's definitely a question mark there if it was the slop that kind of hindered her progress, or did she just not make the leap to her 3-year-old season. Tarifa, I think, ran probably one of the better races I've seen
Me
at
too.
fairgrounds in general. And I don't know if she can come back with an effort like that. Intricate, another one, a horse that likes to close, but a horse that I find interesting in this spot is the 7, Our Pretty Woman.
Yeah, she might
It,
be the horse to catch, right?
she might be any kind. I mean, she's won both times on the slop, but there's a possibility where this horse can kind of get away with some easy splits early
Yep.
and have enough left. I'm guessing Joel is going to be quite aggressive here to get to the front because there really isn't much, speed wise in this race. So definitely interesting. I would think that this horse is actually probably going to be second choice, and then Intricate is probably going to be third choice.
I
just based
wouldn't be
on running
shocked if the
style.
three of them are pretty close. I mean, Tarifa
Yeah,
will be the strong number one, but I don't think there'll be that much separation between the three of them. Yeah, I agree
yeah,
with you. Like 5-2, 3-1, or even 5-2, 5-2 ish. And then Tarifa takes a lot more than them. Because that was, like you said, that was a monster effort. And maybe she is freaky. Maybe it was the slop, but I'm looking. I think there are a couple others that you could, even in this small field, and I think we hit them all because our pretty woman, she's got to go, and the plan for Joelle's the same in a race 11 and race 12, right? It's like
yeah,
I'm on our pretty woman here for Asmussen. We're gonna show some speed from the outside and go. I'm on track Phantom from the outside for Asmussen. We're gonna show some speed and we're gonna go. And it's nice for Joel knowing that once he hits race 11, he's just got to be all in early, for he doesn't have to change the style or his tactics for these two races in a row.
right.
It's not like you
Just
go
go.
from deep closer to speed horse. It's, hey, okay, now it's time to just go.
Yeah, and that might be the difference. Um, Man, this is another really good race. I'm very interested to see. I know from a betting perspective, this isn't the best race out of the sequence, but it's very interesting. Its
I really do
impacts
think
going
any of those
forward.
four horses could win.
Right, absolutely. I mean, Vivi's Dream could easily win this race at a
Mm-hmm.
decent price. Same thing with Our Pretty Woman. I mean,
Yep,
like,
absolutely.
this is definitely going to be a good race to watch, if anything else.
So challenging, not as big of a field with as big of prices as we had, but when you have a tough time keying in on one or two, it makes building those pick 4 and pick 5 tickets all that more challenging. Let's finish things up, Barry, in the grade 2 Louisiana Derby. So Triple Espresso is headed to
I think that one's
Turfway.
running.
Wait, okay, well, let me make
I
sure.
think
Yeah, I think
Agate Road is going to Turfway.
okay. Okay. So Kentucky Derby points on the line here. We have from the outside Track Phantom. Okay, so yeah, Accommodate Eva starts in the Fairgrounds Oaks, who we just talked about. It's going to be race day decision for that one. So Accommodate Eva might also be in. And then Agate Road to Fairgrounds, Triple Espresso to Turfway, per trainer Todd Pletcher. So that was Marcus Hirsch a little bit earlier today. So we will have that one is weird to me, right? Doesn't
Yeah,
that
it's
one seem,
strange.
because it did seem like Agate Road was 7-2 on the morning line in the other race, and you feel like that would be a better spot for, but you'll that was the tweet as of Wednesday morning. Agate Road to Fairgrounds and Triple Espresso to Turfway per Todd Pletcher. So make sure you're following Marcus Hirsch this week at DRF Hirsch for great Fairgrounds information leading into that day. He does a really good job giving you news and all the updates and stuff. So Barry, from a Kentucky Derby points, from a gambling, from a handicapping standpoint, the 2 and 3 horses from the Risen Star are back. That was Track Phantom and that was Catching Freedom. So they will be major players in here because both of them have been good in really all of their races. They show completely different running styles. Track Phantom from the outside, he'll be showing speed. And honestly, there's a couple horses who I think are going to show more speed, but if everyone's just running off of their last race or their last couple of races, he's a lot faster than them early than
Yeah,
most,
absolutely. And
Um,
it's so interesting because of the draw.
yeah,
The horses on the way outside, but you have horses like Hall of Fame who
that's
can show some speed and probably will, and then
those are the
Antiquarian.
two keys, right?
Yeah, if they can bother Track Phantom and not let that horse kind of get away, then things kind of open up a little bit. And one of the horses who I've been on for a while now, and the horse just can't get his act straight in the stretch, is Catching Freedom. If he
Yeah.
does, this horse has a lot of talent, can
Yep.
finish races off, and I'm very interested in playing him on Saturday. Another one
What
who
I'm
kind
willing
of
to give him another shot to with Catching Freedom is I like different jockey, but I really do like Pratt aboard too. Very strong
Yeah,
finisher.
he fits this horse a lot better than Size and Guru.
Yep.
You
Completely
know,
agree on that. Yeah. And with a horse like this, the off tracks do kind of hurt him and make him even more ziggy and zaggy late,
hmm
And so I'm not as concerned. And he and Sierra Leone were the only two horses closing in that race where they didn't go that fast. Sierra Leone closed a little bit better than him, and that's one of the other top horses of the 3-year-olds. I mean, I think he really does make sense. It's just, are they going to be going fast enough? Does he get the help from the horses inside of him? Hall of
I
Fame and
honestly
antiquarian.
I honestly don't think he needs it. I
Yeah.
think this horse is good enough and talented enough and fast enough to get in position where he doesn't have to close from way back in
I
order to
agree.
win. It's just a matter of the horse kind of maturing.
Because he
And
can
will
middle move into position, right? He's
hmm
not a deep unleash from the back at the top of the lane closer. Even just looking at his running lines, they can
he's
move
never
him up.
really 4 lengths back. He's usually kind of close. It's just the numbers in front of those lengths make it look like he's a dead closer, but he really isn't.
No, he's been very honest. I have this guy in a couple fantasy horse racing leagues that I'm in. I like him a lot too. I think he's going to run a big race. I I'm
Where
almost wondering in this type of a race with the draw and just knowing that a horse like Track Phantom is in pretty good shape where you've got, Kentucky Derby points. Track Phantom's fifth right now. He has 55. Do they mess around a little bit and see if he can sit off the pace? Is this the type of race where you do that from the outside, where you see, man, they're going fast. You see if this horse can sit third. And then if he doesn't, who cares? We're going to go to the lead, or we'll try to show speed. We see that happen sometimes along the road to the Derby where you try to experiment. This might be a situation where you've got points in the bank. If these horses inside of you break, well, maybe he just tries to sit third. I'm not saying he wins or loses that way, but I wouldn't like him as much in that sense, because we know going to the lead is good for him. The horse, to me, that is the biggest wild card of the whole thing is Hall of Fame.
yeah.
What tactics are they going to
Which
do
one is showing
right
up?
with him? Because he had a fine start. He was inside. He was sitting like third early, probably where they want to be in this race,
hmm
I would say. Inside, maybe just behind the leaders, saving ground. Then he got stuck inside in between horses. He got kind of pushed back badly behind horses. He tried to move to the 2 path. He was really close up. He made a 3-wide bid at the top of the lane and then nothing. Like, he was looming up. When that happens and you have a barn that seems to be really high on this horse, anytime you hear Asmussen talk about horses, he always wants to talk about this horse, or he'll mention some very positives. I think they're going to get aggressive with him.
Well, you know what it is like. I'm gonna make like an analogy of a to a different sport with Hall
Please
of
do.
Fame. Um, Basically, it's like from when college basketball players come up to pros,
Yes.
the
You stake
speed
your
of the
claim.
game is different.
Yep.
And I think that's what the Horse Hall of Fame got a taste of in that
Mm-hmm.
grade two
It's a good
first
point.
time, and probably got a lot out of that race. I'm expecting this horse to run way better, you know, as far as the dry track and then the experience that he got in the Risen Star. I think
Yep.
he's going to turn it around. I don't know, I'm not really too sure whether or not he can win. I think that kind of for me is going to be dictated by the price that he ends up. He definitely is talented enough to win.
Sure.
It's just a matter of him getting the right trip and then handling all the other things that go along with it. I think this horse has the potential to do that. But another horse that kind of really caught my eye was Common Defense,
Yep.
because that horse jumped up and ran a really good race, um, not out of nowhere, but it wasn't as expected as you would think,
Mm-hmm.
especially
And
to a horse like Timberlake, who kind of outclassed everybody. And this horse ran really good unexpectedly, and I think there's a step forward there.
you can kind of look back at Common Defense in his 4 races overall, because I actually liked him in the south, going into the Southwest. And then coming out of the Southwest, I noticed that his race that he lost in his debut, when he did not run poorly at all, it was on a good track at Oaklawn.
Mhm.
Came back, broke his maiden, and was better on a fast track. Then that third start was again on an off track. He did not fire at all. Let's just say that race was on a fast dirt track. I'm not saying he wins the Southwest or anything, but if it's just an allowance race and it was running on a fast track, he would probably have shown some speed figure progression to where the 90 wouldn't have
Makes
felt
sense.
as much out of nowhere, you know?
Right.
And that, so we still are seeing this horse grow up. He just ran into, you know, unideal circumstances that day on February the 3rd, but he was still getting better. He was still improving. He just didn't have a chance to show it yet till the Rebel when he came back, and he ran really well that day. He stayed inside. He was just behind the leaders. He was full of run. He waited. He had to slow down a little bit to move through a tight spot, but he finished really well. He had a nice gallop out. Timberlake was a little geared down that day. He wasn't going to win the race or anything, but he was a strong second that day, well clear of everybody else. And I think he's a major player here.
Yeah, not to mention the fact that he has 4,
Races
races
going
over a
long.
mile. Yeah.
Yes.
And that's gonna
Foundation.
make a difference, especially as these races get tougher and they get longer.
Yep.
But you can see, like we were just talking about Hall of Fame, how this horse kind of made that progression, kind of figured things out in the Southwest, almost, eerily similar. And then this horse is gonna come back and run good in the grade two and in the Rebel. Hall of Fame could kind of emulate that same kind of thing, and those horses are dangerous at this time of year.
One horse who is going to be really forgotten about, I think, is the 9, Real Men Violin. Now, he's another one that has a lot of foundation with these races going longer. He has a couple grass races, and then look at the dirt form last year, just his last couple races. So he beats Track Phantom on a sloppy track. Then he comes back. He runs really well in the Jockey Club. He finishes second that day behind Honor Marie. He earns an 89 Beyer speed figure. And that's the finish of his 2-year-old season. So he's off for a while. And coming into this season, he shows up in the Risen Star. First time he shows up, it's on a sloppy track. It wasn't really the sloppy track why he ran poorly. He was inside. He was only about 4 or 5 lengths off early, and he moved up to 6th. Then he was 4th inside. He just had no room. He got stopped badly. He waited. He kind of tried to come on again, but it was a bad race shape for him. And that was his first start in a few months. He was tired, but I think he's got a better race in there too. And again, another one who was progressing last year. Was it kind of like we were talking about with Vivi's Dream? Was it the
Mhm.
slop? Was it maybe that he was just a little bit better last year and he hasn't progressed? But he'll certainly be a big enough price to throw him in somewhere to give him a shot.
He's training lights out too. I was going to say, if you can find an excuse for that horse, which seems to be the case,
Yeah.
this one's really live at a nice price.
And we talk about it with McPeak, man.
It's just hard to figure out when he's going
And
to fire. But
it's like,
this horse has
one
been
of them are going to
consistent,
fire,
though.
right?
This horse
Yeah.
has been really consistent.
He has.
So,
And the only race he ran poorly, he had a legitimately troubled excuse. If you go back and watch that Risen Star, he's down on the inside, moving up nicely into contention, and he just gets stopped. Nowhere to go. And remember, there wasn't much passing in that race. Track Phantom
no,
basically
really
went
wasn't.
gate to wire. Sierra Leone passed, and Catching Freedom was like the only other horse passing horses. So, yeah, you could give him another shot back in a really fun renewal of the Louisiana Derby. So it seems like, where do you sit with Track Phantom?
I'm gonna side against. I mean, obviously this horse is formidable and has a pace advantage, but it's gonna be tough from out there. Um, and I think he might get used a lot more than they really want to get the lead, and that might be his ultimate demise.
Yeah.
There's some other good horses in here that are improving at the right time, so he's no cinch, even
In,
though he has the pace advantage.
and you don't want to overdo this when you're using the Kentucky Derby points angle and handicapping, but he does not need this race. Track Phantom.
No,
He's
not at
in
all.
it, and they want to win, and they want to run well. But if it's a battle late, is Joel going to go all out and try to get every single thing out of this horse, or are they completely fine with a solid second or third, to get you ready for the Derby? That's a question that you might want to ask versus a horse like a Hall of Fame, who, if their connections are really high on this horse and they really like him, they
They're
may
going.
be really all in to win this race.
Yep.
Or have to run second here, So he's the horse who I think can either impact the race the most and is sort of the biggest wild card in this race based on what they do with him. Hall of Fame. Seems like you and I both kind of feel like Catching Freedom's the horse to beat, though.
Yeah, I think so. I like that
Yeah,
horse a lot.
me
He's
too.
not going to be favored most
Nope.
likely.
No, I don't think so. He might
And
be the third choice, honestly. Like he could be around 4-9-2, and I wouldn't be shocked. I would not be shocked if Hall of Fame gets bet in this race off of his figure. I don't know that much, but he's going to get bet a little bit, and yeah, he'll probably be him, and then just Track Phantom. So he's probably the third choice.
yeah,
I could see. Yeah.
yeah, that makes sense. And if it's a complete meltdown, then Agate Road might be the one.
Good pick 5 sequence. Really good pick 5 sequence at Fairgrounds on Saturday. Get involved. Before you do, head on over to drf.com and check out that Spring into Savings sale. Barry, March Madness coming up. I know you and Chuck are both basketball fans.
Oh, yeah.
It's Wednesday night. I'm about to fill out your bracket in a little bit. I'm going to post the shows and the pods, and then I got my notes for like 6 or 7 different pools. I'm going to get my brackets in a little, and I'm going to be ready to rock and roll. Tell everybody out there about Chuck and Going in Circles and Big Mondays.
Yeah, my partner Chuck, long time in the game. We do a podcast every Monday called Big Monday for Going Circles podcast. We talk about everything in the industry, mostly industry related stuff and the business side of things and how things are going aside from the races, because that seems to be kind of where the industry is kind of going through a transition. So we talk a lot about that stuff. Chuck is well versed. He was a trainer for 20 years and did some harness stuff, and he's very knowledgeable up and down, and I've learned a lot from him. So you should check us out. I bring the betting perspective and the gambler side and handicapper side to it, and it works for us. And hopefully you'll tune in.
Barry, buddy. So next week, you and I will probably tackle Gulfstream.
Yes.
Because they got the Florida Derby coming up. So
yes.
They'll have, and then Dubai World Cup will start early in the morning. And then it'll also be Arkansas Derby. So I'll see if I can get a guest to join me, and I'll do a video for Arkansas Derby as well. And
nice.
Then following that, we'll have 3 that weekend, the next weekend with Keeneland, with Santa Anita, and with the Wood Memorial at Aqueduct. I am looking forward to it. Everyone, enjoy your weekends coming up. Good luck in all the races that you play. Remember to get to drf.com for the Spring into Savings sale all the way through March the 24th on Sunday. Barry, buddy, thank you again for all your hard work, my friend. Couple weeks ago, we had a really good week. Not quite as well last week, but we did great at Tampa a few weeks. So time for us to bounce back and have another strong weekend this one.
Yeah, we're bouncing back, no doubt.
Folks, have a great one. Enjoy March Madness too. Hope everyone's brackets don't get busted right away. And listen to the soothing sounds of Joey Cleveland.